What's up, Gaming Rebellion, and welcome to Game Revolt's Rebel Yell Gaming Podcast, where we talk about what's going on in the gaming world and share our thoughts for changing that world for the better, putting indie developers and gamers first. My name is Dirac, joined by our head honcho and Game Revolt's founder, Isaiah, and we'd love for you to join us as we have real conversations and navigate the industry. So, let's get into it. But first, a quick thank you to our community of rebels for tuning in.
Hello, everyone, and today we have episode 3 of our podcast here. Today we're going to talk about physical copies and digital downloads, talk about the good and the bad, going both ways. I'm joined here with my co-host, Dirac.
What's up?
Hey, so I guess I'll start you off with this. Which medium do you prefer?
So it's funny because I was thinking about that today, and I was thinking that I miss those days where I could go to a game store and I could go pick up a physical copy of a game and then come home with it, just plug it in and start playing immediately. I know with a lot of even the physical copies for games today, like for the Nintendo Switch, like you still have to load up their assets and content and whatnot before you're actually able to play. That gets kind of annoying. And then I remember with having the actual game cases that came with the instruction booklet, and I was thinking how much fun it was just to have that. You can go through the booklet and get really excited about the game, then some of them even had like the promo code in them that let you get access to like a special weapon or a certain cosmetic that you could show off to your friends or whatever, kind of to like show them that you're an owner of that copy of the game. That sense of pride that you get for having purchased the game or even receiving it as a gift, like regardless, like you knew that you were an owner of a copy of that game, and you could do that with the game itself or like a collector's edition, which gave you like, of course, more stuff for more money and whatnot. And even though I do miss those days being able to do that, and I would love it if we could somehow get back to that to a certain degree, I will say digital copies have had their benefit as far as everything being more comprehensive. You don't necessarily have to look to find your game if you want to play it. I know I lose my games all the time because I'm not an organized person whatsoever. But like I would lose my games. Sometimes they'd get scratched up for the games that I have for on discs, and then like they became unplayable and pretty much useless. But I will say I've been leaning more towards the digital only because of the convenience that it gives me personally. But again, I would like to see more, or at least have the option for more physical copies to say, hey, look, I have it. Like I can prove it. I can show it to you right now. Like it's right here in my hand, as opposed to saying, oh, well, I have the digital copy, which technically isn't even really true. I learned that when you're purchasing a digital copy of a game or whatnot, it's not even the actual game. You're buying a license for the game. But
Correct.
You can go into that later. But yeah, I tend to lean towards the digital only because I'm used to it now.
You know, that's interesting because we see now companies are starting to move. They recognize that consumers are buying digital more. And now you see the PS5 Pro, which is the most expensive version of the PS5, doesn't come with a disc drive at all.
Right.
In fact, you'd have to pay an extra $80 to get that disc drive.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's just indicative of how a lot of people are angry about it, but they're just following the trends, following the market, and the market has been going more and more towards this convenience as opposed to actual ownership of the games. So do you think that this is a test for Sony to see what they can get away with it with their next console, to see if they can sell the PS6 or whatever's next without the disc drive, and you can still have that inflated price?
To be honest, I feel like that tends to be the motive for most of these companies, is just to kind of test the waters to see what they can get away with. But I honestly think that when Sony decided to do that with the PS5, to have both a version for only digital and one for the allowance of physical copies, they could have used that opportunity to really to the market to see what it is that people want, or at least get that metric to get a better understanding. And to be honest with you, I would have loved to see that data if it would have been possible. See exactly what the trends are, what people actually wanted. But because of how they executed the release of the PS5 and the fact that it was almost impossible to get your hand on one,
Right.
it clearly had to have sullied that data, because now it doesn't become a question of, oh, do you prefer having the physical copies, or are you fine with the digital? Now it becomes like, uh,
Take
can
what you
I
can get.
afford, yeah, can I afford this particular copy regardless of what attachments it has, or uh, what is available to me at this time? It's just like, I'll just take what I can get. So it's like that data would have to be useless, I would think. But yeah, I think companies like Sony would definitely use the opportunity to just see what they can get away with. I don't see them doing us any favors. They just want to see what the trends are leaning towards. I don't know where they're at right now, or where they think it's leaning towards, but it's looking like digital might be uh, the future, at least for Sony.
I think that's a good point that you bring up. I wasn't thinking about that, and how they did have both versions out, and that was probably their litmus test to see, which can we have a digital only, and would consumers still be happy with it? Would enough consumers be happy with it? But
Mm.
living through the pandemic and supply chain issues, you're right, that's solely the data. And PS5s were, I mean, everybody was just trying to get whatever PS5 they can get. I mean, you remember back then, scalpers were
Oh yeah.
charging double the price for a PS5. It didn't
Hmm.
matter whether it had a disc drive or not. You were just trying to get it. Xbox didn't have those issues, funnily enough.
Right.
But for the PS5 specifically, you're right, that data is solid, but
Mm.
maybe they are misinterpreting that data, because there seems to be quite a bit of backlash against no disk drive. Maybe it's the high price of the PS5 Pro. It doesn't seem like, you're getting a lot for it, but I
Yeah.
don't want to harp on the PS5 Pro too much. I want to talk, more about physical. So you lean more towards digital now.
Mm.
With me, it's kind of what sucks with PC is that I play mostly PC games, is that you really don't have a physical copy you can get anymore.
Yeah.
Most games only have digital.
Right.
So long are the days of like EB games where you can go and, purchase a computer game and you get the whole box set with the art and
Yeah.
everything like you're talking about.
Right. Right.
With few exceptions, you can get like Baldur's Gate 3 has the collector's edition that you can buy,
Right.
which was cool.
I think
But
that's
for
lit.
my console games, I have the Switch and the PS5.
Mm.
Most of my games are physical. I do like having the physical game, but
Mm.
it does have what like you said, if you're not organized and you lose the game, then, that's it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I if given the option, I would
Mm.
almost always take physical.
Mm.
The only exceptions, I guess, would be thinking like online games where you didn't play World of Warcraft, but maybe you recognize it with Final Fantasy 14.
Right.
If
Right.
you
Right.
want to play the expansion midnight when everybody else is playing,
Right.
you'd have to buy digital, because if
Yeah.
you got the physical copy,
Mm.
then you'd have to wait till tomorrow,
Right.
whenever you had the chance to go to the store or whatever to go get the game, or God forbid you had it shipped to you and then it got shipping, got delayed and all that stuff.
Mm.
Those are things you don't have to worry about
Right. I mean,
in those games. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it does have its disadvantages. Like you said again, like with disorganization and whatnot, and even with a lot of the PCs that are coming out today, like the PC that I built for myself, I didn't even think to look for one, but like it doesn't have a disk drive. Now they have like external disk drives, and of course you can just purchase one that fits for your computer. But it's like I don't even need one at this point because I don't necessarily use them, and
Right.
it's kind of sad to recognize that, because it's like I kind of wish I did have a disk drive, but then at the same time, like I would like to have something to use on it. But again, with most of like the physical media, there's not. I don't want to say there's not much point to using it, but it feels good to have that stuff. Like I have the PS4 and I have the Switch, and I love that the Switch has the cartridges. I love that they went back to cartridges as opposed to like how most of the systems are all on discs now.
Right.
And I think it's really cool because again, it gives you that sense of ownership. And in Nintendo's case, that was pretty much like our childhood. So it's really cool that they kept that aspect. I'm sure that was part of their whole like marketing and whatnot. But
I kind of wish PC games would have adapted because, like you said, people aren't getting disk drives like they used to because there isn't a need. But everybody has USBs. I know you. I don't know if you have this or not. I have a USB extender where I have multiple USBs because I feel like my case never has enough USB slots for things I
need
want to
one of
plug in.
those.
Right. So everybody's using this. I wish games decided to go and follow that trend and instead of having discs with the USB model,
Mhm.
which most people are accustomed to, they use
Right.
it already.
Hmm.
And I think that would have been you've seen those USB credit card looking things
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
yeah, I know we talked about this before
Right.
where uh it's slim, you can have the art still on it and
Right. You can
it's
keep it in
still
your
a
wallet.
piece of physical, the physical that you can feel, you can touch
Right.
that like you were saying before, it gives you that ownership and it removes a lot of the drawbacks of the disc,
Mhm.
who who doesn't
Yeah.
remember, on your PS2 getting disc read error and whatnot, and it's like, oh
Yes.
god,
Having to take it out, wipe the disc, breathe on it,
yeah,
so I
getting the
put it back in.
alcohol,
Yeah.
doing all kinds of things that you heard online that maybe it could fix it, and
Yeah. I
who
remember
knows?
that with the Dreamcast and the PlayStation and like all of those.
Right, right.
But
So,
yeah.
but yeah, I do wish they went more in that direction, and I feel like there is a way that we could get back to getting physical copies. Of course, it does cost. There is a cost to it, but there is a cost to digital as well. Most people know that Steam charges you 30%
Mhm.
to host a game on their platform, which is pretty close to what Games. I think it's actually more than what GameStop was charging in Epic's lawsuit. They emails got leaked that they were complaining about Steam charging so much on their platform, which was about the same amount that GameStop was charging. But GameStop had the physical distribution. You had to pay truck drivers and all this stuff, to get the
Oh,
games at the different locations. You had to pay for the stores and all that. So it was like, well, why is Steam charging the same amount or more for digital? So you as the consumer don't see that, but the
mhm.
developer is paying that price tag. So I feel like
Right.
if the prices are gonna end up being the same anyway, there is a place to have physical goal as
No,
well.
yeah, absolutely. It definitely has its place in this industry, and I know a lot of people will go towards the cheaper variants. In any case, I know with a lot of indie developers when they're just trying to get themselves like on their feet and to get started and whatnot, they're more likely to go with the digital option because like they either I don't want to say that they can't afford it, but they might not have the means to like do that and the physical distribution. But then like you have companies that will help them do the physical copies, like go ahead and games like Hades and Celeste. When they first came out, they were digital only. But there was another company, I forget the name, I have to pull it up, but they helped them by creating physical copies and whatnot
Really,
for
I
them.
didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I was looking that up. I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that they had companies that actually did that." But it's nice to see that they do have companies who have that same thought process. They're called limited run games. But it's
Okay,
nice to
so I
see.
bought Hades,
Mhm.
the physical copy for the Switch when I
Yeah,
was taking my one of my trips to DR,
yeah, and
and I was playing it out there. I had no idea that okay, it was a digital only at first.
right, like it's awesome that they did that because I'm sure that Hades would have been successful regardless. But just the fact that they had that option, it opens them up to more, I would say, like a wider market, even if it's not necessarily their target audience, so to speak. Like, still, it opens them up for more revenue, more people to come and see what they have available for people who want to see more physical copies in general. But
course,
I will.
I didn't look up Hades prior to. I happened to be walking into GameStop and I saw it. I was like, oh, that art looks cool.
See,
Yeah,
that's one thing I
I
haven't
think
done
it
in a
actually might have
while.
been on sale too. I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll take it. Or
No,
maybe
yeah,
I got a used version. I can't remember. But I decided to buy it just because of how it looked. And had it not been there'd been a physical copy, maybe I would have never seen it. And it's a great game. I recommend it to anybody
oh yeah, oh
even if
yeah.
you've never played a roguelike before. That was my first roguelike. Really fun game.
No, yeah, Hades is really fun. I think I still have your copy, but yeah, I mean, you said it right there. It's just like the fact that you were able to go into a game store, you saw Hades on the display and whatnot, and like it had a physical copy. You're like, all right, you know what, I'll check it out. Like, I don't think you could do the same if you were to walk into a game store and see it's available on Steam. It's like, all right, so what would be the point of being in the game store in the first place? It's been a while since I've been to a game store, like. But it's awesome that you're able to do that. And again, that opens up opportunity for people who are still browsing the stores to see what's available, what's online or whatnot, and being able to go home with something in your hands, something physical that you can hold, that you can go home with. But I definitely feel like there needs to be more of that. I know that they have ways of doing so by making collector's editions to stuff where you pay maybe a little bit extra and then you get something in return. This is one way I think that they can kind of bridge that gap as far as expenses go. If
Right.
you give your consumers something that is of value, something more value than just the game itself, and something that might not necessarily cost the company too much, I guess you could say. It
Oh yeah,
would,
GameStop used to do that all the time. When you pre-ordered, you used to get some little doohickey. It probably cost them like 50 cents or whatever.
right.
But you got it, and it just felt cool that you got this poster or
Yeah,
like a little
exactly.
mask or something like that. I think for Zelda, when they made the Ocarina of Time in 3D, they gave away a small, little ocarina to go with it. Yeah, how much did that cost them? Not a lot, but
Mhm.
as a customer, would you rather the company say, here's $1 for thank you for pre-ordering with us, or do you get this ocarina that came with the game that's just way cooler, you know?
Yeah, it is. Especially if you're like a longtime Zelda fan. Like that would hold like sentimental value to you at some point, or like a certain level of value where it's just like, look at this. I got this because I bought, the actual game. And it's like you could do with that what you want. You could pass it on to your kids or your nephews or whatnot, or you could put it on a display case
Yeah,
in
or
your
it's just
room
cool.
and
I
show it
don't know if
off.
you remember the Pokemon first movie,
Oh yes.
different thing, but they were giving out that double-sided holographic Mew card.
Oh
Again,
hell
how much
yeah.
did that cost? But I wanted that so bad. It was so cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this YouTuber I was watching today. His name's Optic Lure,
Mhm.
and he was talking about why you should buy physical games, and he only gave one reason, and the reason he gave wasn't, about everything we talked about as far as, the having ownership or
Mhm.
game preservation, the art books and things like that. Those are all cool. But he was talking about basically how he went on this journey before he actually journeyed into the game and the memory he had going to buy Resident Evil 2 and
Mhm.
all the things he did along the way. And he got to the store and
Mhm.
they didn't have, he pre ordered the game, but they didn't unbox it. So they didn't think that they had the game and everything. Anyways, there was a lot of inconvenience there, but he was talking about how this, years later, he still has this memory of him going down to the store and getting this game and all the events that happened,
Mhm.
that day. And I was thinking as I was listening to this video, thinking about different games that I bought. I remember going down for, midnight releases, Halo 3
Yeah.
with me and my friends. And not only was it me and my friends, then you see all these other people there, and the only reason they're standing in front of this GameStop at midnight is because they also like Halo 3. And
Mhm.
you start talking to people, and it makes that community, I guess, of
Yes.
right. So it's this intangible thing that you get from having the tangible available,
Right.
something that you can't really quantify, but
Right.
it is very much real. And I appreciate him bringing that up because it just really had me going down
Mhm.
memory lane and thinking about all these experiences that I was able to make because
Right.
um, I stepped outside. It's like you've seen that I'm growing my own strawberries now.
Yeah. Mhm.
I'm gonna appreciate those strawberries way more than I would go into the
Like, just
store and
going to
just
buy
buying.
it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Like you have having these experiences of going to GameStop, and even if there's things are not always the way you wanted it to be,
Right.
but you're going to remember that versus you. I don't have any good memory. I'm not gonna say I love Elden Ring, right? One of my
Yes.
favorite games of all time.
Yes.
All I did was just click buy on the Steam store, and that was it. You know,
Yeah.
not a lot of experience in that journey there.
No, but I think that's one really important thing to consider when it comes to like the physical versus digital copy debate is that 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 feeling that comes from doing the physical, you can't necessarily recreate it in the digital, at least not yet. I'm sure I mean, we have digital communities. There's ways that you can do like, they have like the watch parties and stuff like that in like their own like regard or whatever. But at the same time, it's just like it's not the same as going out and waiting online for the release of a new game like Halo 3 and going to a game store and picking up your own physical copy for the game at its release or getting a new console or even like having you remember the Game Informer magazines when they came in the
Oh yeah,
mail and like
yep,
they're just like full of information of all the games that are coming out or that are out already with walkthroughs and stuff. I miss that.
yeah, I do too, man.
I mean, it would be nice if we can get some of that back. I know a lot of people, or at least like it feels like the climate today is just everything is convenience and expediency. It's just like I want this and I want it now, and it says it's ready at this date. This is when I want it. It's like I get it. I
Yeah,
absolutely understands like the convenience is something that a lot of people rely on because like everyone has like busy lives. Everyone wants to just get what they need and keep it pushing. But at the same time, I feel like when you do have that moment to really sit and enjoy something, like uh, the difference between watching a movie at home or going to the movies for the experience or for the ambience or whatnot,
right.
there's a distinct difference there, and it's something that you won't necessarily get to see for yourself if it's not an option anymore. So I think if we were able to somehow incorporate that physical ability back into, or at the very least, not go full digital, find a way to still keep the physical aspect in some kind of hybrid version or something like that, we could like still kind of hold on to that feeling, I guess you could say, which again, I think is something that's necessary. Everyone should have that ability to experience that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and I was thinking, why does it have to be either or? Why
you're right.
can't I'm also kind of curious why I'm sure I don't know, maybe it's money or something. Like I was saying back in the day when I used to get World of Warcraft, I would want to get the collector's edition, but it was like, dang, it sucks. If I get the collector's edition, I can't play on midnight with everybody because I have to
Mm,
wait. Because I
right.
don't even think they shipped it out until
That the
the
same day.
day it released, right? So then,
Yeah.
like, that's a few days waiting and a
Yeah.
few days at the beginning of an expansion. That's huge. So it was like, why, if the people who bought the game were able to just type in a code and they could play, why can't I type in a code and just wait for my game to come in, so I could actually have the
Right.
physical too? Is like, I'm not sure really, maybe you have any thoughts on why it is that companies don't do that?
To be honest, I feel like during that time in particular, it's possible that they were just trying to ride the hype of whenever they had like a new release or an update and everyone was getting excited about it. They wanted to capitalize on that, I would think. So like they had the collector's edition available, but at the same time, like they wanted to keep that momentum going. So they would make it, at least I think they would make the game and everything available for the people who wanted it on that exact date, and the whole collector's edition getting the physical copy sent out the same day kind of took a back seat, or they put it on the back burner and be like, okay, well, they'll get it when they get to it, but let's get this out as soon as possible, make sure everyone's happy so that they'll buy more of our stuff, is where I think their mindset will probably lead towards. But of course, in doing so, like people like you who would like want to get the collector's edition, like they're technically losing out on some of that money. It might have been a drop in the bucket in comparison to having people who having more people who would have bought the collector's edition as opposed to people who would buy their digital version, because then the option becomes I can either play this sooner or I can get it whenever it gets to me, but I also get this extra stuff. And for a lot of people, I assume it was just, well, I want to play it as soon as possible. I want it now, which goes into today's climate. Everything is, I want everything now. I want everything to be immediate. I want it when it comes out.
Right.
There's less patience with people, which is not really something you can control, but there's no reason why they couldn't have been like you said, they could have sent out they didn't have to send it out the same day that it was supposed to be released. They could have sent it out knowing that, okay, we'll make it available. Like I know with I think one of the Pokemon games I got, I want to say it was Pokemon Soul Silver and Heart Gold. If I remember correctly, I bought it from GameStop, and I did it thinking that, well, by the time it gets there, it'll be like maybe a week after people have already started getting it. I believe that was a game. I can't remember, but I remember going to GameStop on the day of its release, and actually the day before, and they said, "Oh, you already purchased it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did." And I'm like, "Oh, well, let me see." They already had like the physical copy there, and I thought that was pretty awesome that they were able to do that, because I'm so used to them being like, "All right, if you get the physical copy, it'll get here when it gets here. I can't
Right.
promise you it's
Right.
going to be there for you when it's actually launched and ready to go, but you'll have the physical copy." And in my case, I wanted the physical, so it didn't really matter to me at that time. But it goes to show that they have the capability of making that work. You don't have to be subjected to one or the other. But again, it goes back to your question, is like, why do we have to pick one over the other? It doesn't have to be that way. They can do that. These are multi-billion-dollar companies. Like, they can make it work, but they choose to do what they want or what makes sense to their numbers, their metrics, whatever the case is. But that kind of turns away from what us, the fans, the gamers, want. Like, because I'm sure, like many of us, we express what we want to see. We want to see certain things, and they have the capacity to do so. But if it doesn't match their metrics, or if it's not hurting their wallet, then it's like, well, you can F off, but you get what you get when you get it.
And something I wasn't thinking about originally, but this week I decided to start playing Pokemon Scarlet again. And I remember that there was a glitch where you were allowed to duplicate items. It was kind of a convoluted way of doing it, but farming the items was kind of annoying. So I decided,
Yeah.
when it first popped out, I was duplicating like crazy. So then I started playing again, and I realized, oh, they patched it out. I can't duplicate it anymore. I shouldn't have updated. So I guess that's also one of the good things about having the physical, is that you could keep the day one version of the game before it has any
other
updates,
patches.
any changes. Maybe in Elden Ring, Radon was really hard for a lot of people, the base version of Radon in the base game. And then they ended up nerfing him later. And it was like, well, if you wanted to have that challenge, it's not even there for you anymore, because they patched it out. They changed it. Whereas if you had the physical copy and you never updated, you could still have that available to you. So I think that is another reason that another, I guess, advantage to owning physical games that is probably not very much considered, is being able to preserve the original version of the game when it was first released.
Right. I think that's actually a good selling point too, because yeah, of course, like you said, like if you wanted to go back to the original, like you could do that. But nowadays, like these companies, if there's a bug or something, they want to patch it. Of course, they're going to want to fix that as soon as possible, because they don't want to
Right, and I
lose,
don't fault the company. Look,
Oh
the
no.
glitch shouldn't have existed,
Yeah, not at
right?
all. Yeah.
Or Radon was too hard for too many people. It
Sure.
should be nerfed. But it's just like, you want to see what was that like
Right.
back then. It's this idea of game preservation. That's another thing that
Mhm.
physical games that are needed, because like once the servers go down,
Mhm.
that's it for that game, right?
Right.
You think about how many different MMOs have there been?
Mhm.
Wildstar, whatever.
Yeah.
The server goes out, and then everything's gone for that game.
Mhm.
Whereas, if it was possible to have a physical version, MMOs are a bit of a different story. But,
Right.
to have a physical version of the game, you can still preserve the game the way it was originally intended.
Right.
You see, it's crazy how my brother has been really into Super Smash and how
Mhm.
big the Super Smash Melee community is. And it's
Yeah.
like, man, yo, can you imagine if this was a digital only game? Nintendo doesn't, do a lot for preserving their old games, but somehow these guys have managed to keep this thing going. When did Melee come out? I don't even. I think I was in
Yeah.
high school maybe when that game came out.
That was a long time.
Yeah, and it's still going strong today.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, I'm sure that a lot of these gaming, companies and, developers and whatnot, I'm sure they have the ability to create a certain form of game preservation because I personally don't know too much about the game development myself, but from what I understand, they typically keep notes on the different updates and whatnot that they apply to games. It makes me wonder if it's possible that they could just go to one of their old notes or the original code of the game and just like make a I don't want to say like a pre-update, but like something where you could give someone access to that version of the game before it was patched, just for them to try it out for themselves, make it like their its own entity. And
Right.
I think that would be awesome if that were possible. I don't know
Right.
if
I
that's
think it's a pretty cool story about how Classic WoW came about was basically, World of Warcraft had changed throughout the years and you can't even recognize it from the beginning
Mhm.
anymore. And people were saying, hey, we want to have a version of World of Warcraft from the beginning. And they were saying
Mhm.
how that would be like such an undertaking to develop the game like that again,
Mhm.
that it wasn't really worth doing. But from my understanding, there was like this one developer who used to work on the game who had a copy of it basically from the beginning. They were like, we could just work off what this guy has.
Yeah.
And then Classic WoW came about from that.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, it was really cool story.
No, I mean
This one
it'd be
guy really
awesome.
helped Classic WoW become the big behemoth that it was.
That goes into how I know we were talking about that in the past too. How like some of these companies like they could absolutely take that same idea and make it into something amazing, especially if it's their own like IP. It makes me wonder why they don't do it, especially when they see how amazing that is. And it also makes me think of some of these indie developers or some of them that I see on YouTube who have taken games from iconic franchises like Sonic and whatnot and have made their own version or like made a modded version of some of the games that would have made the game more impressive or more fun to play. And just to see like them work is amazing. It's like, wow, I can't believe they could have done this, but they chose not to. And even if they had someone to come and take a look at this and see how receptive people are to this developer's like version of it, they probably still wouldn't do anything about it because as far as they're concerned, it's not going to make them enough money. But that's going off topic. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I will say that I do like when companies with pretty much anything is like when they're actually listening to us and they actually try to do something as far as make changes, do innovations. We're looking at like FromSoftware, how they are constantly doing their patches and what a lot of things like I don't think even people necessarily like ask for, but they notice things that they could fix and they would know that their fans would appreciate and they put them in there and like it's just hit after hit. Like they're still getting it done. And it's amazing to see that there are companies out there who are willing to put in that extra effort for us as the gamer as time goes on. It makes me really wish that we can get more of these people up there and hopefully to the point where, or at least not too far to the point where they become corrupted like some of these other companies, but just to see that they're making the effort is really amazing. Like I would gladly pay for a collector's edition for any of these hits like Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate 3. Like I think I just think it's amazing. But that's
Yeah, I
where
think that's the most important thing is that if people want to see this stuff come back, then companies need to see that that's what we want.
Mhm.
Because like we see with the PS5 Pro,
Mhm.
their belief is that the consumer is fine with not having the physical copy.
Mhm.
Well, then if you don't buy it, then they'll say, okay, that was a mistake.
Right.
Here, we'll give you, the disk drives back. We'll support physical copies
Mhm.
again, and just as the consumer is learning to enjoy that unboxing experience, and collecting the game, and
Right.
yeah, we're just really making this something that making it so that companies feel that that this is what we want. You have
Right.
to support these things. You have to start buying physical copies again if that's what you want to see.
And it's amazing to see that because a lot of people don't realize like how much power we really do have. Like,
Oh, big time.
I mean, companies, of course, think they run the show, but at the end of the day, they rely on us, the consumer, and that's with anything. So it's like you said before, it's just like you really want to hit them where it hurts. Like, don't buy their stuff. Like, that's absolutely correct. Like, if you want to hit them where it hurts, that's what you do. You don't buy their stuff or you go somewhere else. And it's not like we don't have options, especially in this day and age. Like, games are popping up left and right. Like if you're really getting pissed off about a certain franchise and you've voiced your opinion, you told them your dissatisfaction and they're still not listening, I mean, it might hurt temporarily to not throw money at them or buy the product and having to go to an alternative, but in the long run when they see that, they think, okay, let me not ignore my fans. Let me try to do something to fix this. Or in their case, it's like, oh, we're losing money. How do we fix it? And then they'll like try to come correct. Like, again, with the whole thing with the Pokemon thing, it's like if Pokemon's your thing, you like to, you'll buy every installment that comes out. That's great and all. But if you see they're like tripping up and you really want to see a change in how they give you their games, then don't buy their product.
Right.
Don't buy their stuff.
Feedback is
Mm.
is important.
It is.
And we'd love to hear your guys' feedback. What do you guys think? Are you more into physical copies and discs and cartridges, or are you a product of the digital age? I know there's a lot of people who, at this point, there are kids who they don't even know what the physical discs that we're even talking about are.
Yeah, it really does make me wonder for the future. But yeah, there's no wrong answers. Like, what are your thoughts? What do you think about physical versus digital? Or is there some kind of hybrid version we can maybe invest in that would, perform create a brighter future for gaming?
Right. So let's keep this conversation going. You can hit us up on our socials. You can drop a comment. Let us know your thoughts on this. Which side of the aisle are you on? Are you middle of the road like I am? Depending on which medium it is. But
Yeah.
let us know. And I think that's all we have for today.
All
As
right.
always, thanks, Direct, for joining me.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.
All right. Happy gaming.
Well, that about wraps it up for today's episode, Rebels. Don't forget to subscribe and stay informed on all things gaming. We've got some exciting projects coming up, so you won't want to miss what's next. We'd like to thank you again for tuning in and joining the rebellion. Until next time, happy gaming.